Let me just adjust this for a second. And I just wanted to say a reminder that this deck is online. You saw the URL mentioned before, and all the interactive DVs are available for you to interact with on your own time. So the first case example I'm going to go through is trying to visualize malnutrition and how it affects the population of Pyongyang. What is the human cost of that malnutrition? You saw GM mention quickly what is malnutrition. Well, it's essentially stunting. So if you have chronic malnutrition at early youth, it affects the rest of your life outcome. So in this first, and I want to thank GM for priming everybody to recognize the shape of North Korea. What I have here is the DPRK net migration population in the thousands against global chronic malnutrition. And so, for people who are aware, migration, labor force movement is a hallmark of well-developed countries. Right? The US is particularly proud of its long history of being able to be mobile in their labor force. You see in DPRK, this is only measured in thousands. So the number of people that are moving from province to province is very low. But we want to see, given situations that are worse in certain provinces, do the people flee that situation to get to Pyongyang? And you'll see all the arrows sort of point, and I'm going to try to map this out for everybody to see. It's a nice puzzle for everybody to reassemble. And you'll see that literally almost all roads lead to Pyongyang in North Korea. The blue lines are sized by the net migration in thousands. And you'll see that what's interesting is that the worst provinces, Yonggwang, that Jan mentioned, and let's see, South Hamgyong, they have multiple vectors. That they're trying to find other ways just to get to even slightly better places. You'll see in particular that it seems that South Pyongyang, because of where it's geographically located, right above Pyongyang, is a staging area for many provinces. You see arrows from several provinces trying to just get to South Pyongyang.
Before you go
Yep.
to the next, how did you get this data to start?
This is the same data that GM used, which is the DPRK Health and what is it? Yeah, National Nutritional Survey. So it's all part of those data included in the report.
So these are not the micro data, but this is the summary data that I think that are publicly available. So that's what Gustav and then John that
Right. Yes. It's all publicly available data.
yeah, but UN has never, I think, come up with this kind of the data to show this migration pattern.
And so we see that people are trying to flee the situation. And you can map that against several variables, and it's consistent. So you saw GM show the map of North Korea again and again for different metrics. And it's sort of uniquely consistent for that situation. And so the migration pattern matches because overall the situation is the same for different indicators. Now in this one, I wanted to scale the human cost of this stunting. So one of the downsides of the traditional cartograph is that the size of the province does not match the size of the humans living in that province. Right? Pyongyang is such a small province in North Korea, but it represents a large proportion of the population. So if we hover over different provinces, this is Pyongyang. And I don't know if you can see in the grayed out section, those are the rest of the provinces. This is a scale by the actual population of Pyongyang. You see in the red is the actual population. The orange is the global chronic malnutrition, which is stunting. And the blue, which is the worst, is acute malnutrition, which I believe is wasting. And you'll see that the size of the stunting, even though Pyongyang does so well, is the size of certain other provinces. We can hover over Yonggwang, and if we scale that down to the actual population of people living there, it's very small. But most of the population there is suffering. You can do this again and again for everything. We mentioned South Pyongyang before. This is the province of Pyongyang, which is right above Pyongyang. You can see how proportional it is to Pyongyang, the population. And this is the human cost involved in wasting and stunting. So I'll stop right here, I guess. This is just sort of the first set explaining sort of the malnutrition of DPRK.
Okay. Any questions so far? Okay.
What caught my ear was that you said that you guys have done things that maybe like the UN hasn't even considered.
Yes.
Do you have plans to, because now there was that whole human rights resolution and all these things going on with malnutrition, and droughts, and famine.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any plans to go and at a point show these different perspectives? Sounds like they may be interested to know.
Perhaps I can comment on it. So we are actually planning to share the final the outcome of this PV. Not only with the public, but also I think particularly with UN, the policymakers and stakeholders, so they can see how all the data they have collected and summarized, just with the table, can be actually, translated something really visible, and it has actually very important policy implications that they could consider for the future. Yes.
If there's no other questions, I'll move on. So my second set, I was asked to look at social and educational indicators, and you'll see in a second that traditional social and educational indicators, particularly on the MDG, the Millennium Development Goals, are sort of patchy. There's a lot of missingness involved. And so my attempt here is to visualize extensions of that data, so if we can improve it with other data sets. So just to highlight the case example, here is the gender parity index for primary enrollment. And this is the MDG accepted indicator for this. And this is like I believe Hannah or Ariel mentioned before, gender parity index is if it's less than 1, less women, the ratio of women to men is off by, there's more men in that enrollment. So this is at the primary level. And this is one of the most well-filled indicators on the MDG, just because I believe probably calculating this is very cheap at the primary level education. So here, I separate the two by 2 colors. Blue lines are drawn for developing countries, countries in transition. The red lines are countries that are classified as developed by the UN. So you'll see every developed country wavers around 1. You'll see right here at the end that that is 1. So we can highlight just that. Let me try to highlight it. Portion. You can see that most countries, developed countries, maintain that ratio. But we see here that developed countries are gradually improving over the course of time in primary enrollments. But the problem here is that there's so much missingness. Every time a country has a blank for that indicator for that year, I plotted at 0. So you see again and again for every year, some country is unable to maintain that effort to produce that indicator. And this is one of the best filled indicators on the MDG list. So it only gets worse. So here, let's plot that same data for 2009 to 2012, which are the 4 years immediately after the 2008 recession globally. And we saw before that it affected sub-Saharan Africa particularly bad. Trying to see here, the example. You can click on countries, and here for Angola, you'll see that it gets worse over time to a point where they just stop producing that indicator. It's no longer able to be collected post that. So in 2012, it just drops off the list. And we can do that again and again for every country here. And all the countries that are highlighted are countries with a gender parity index of less than 1. That means that women are less represented in primary education. You see that there's some subtle change in the countries, but that mostly sub-Saharan Africa is worse is worse. And we can look at here and highlight again and again for each of these countries. So I wanted to consider with this degree of missingness, is there a potential alternative that we can use to augment that data, augment the MDG indicators? And there's all these other avenues of research happening, right? Young himself is looking into administrative records, traditional paper forms that are generated. You can look at cell phone usage, and the data set I finally decided to try is satellite data, satellite images, to see if we can augment it. And I'm sure everybody's seen the image of North Korea against South Korea, the visible satellite, like nighttime lights, right, and the stark difference. And so I use two dataset products, which is the visible infrared imaging radiometer suite. So it's a mouthful, but it's short for VIIRS, nighttime lights. And that has a pixel resolution of about 750 meters per pixel. And then there's an older data set, which is no longer maintained because it's been replaced by VIIRS, which is called the Defense Meteorological Satellite Program, which I think is a pretty cool name, or DMSP. And that has a resolution of about 3 kilometers per pixel, so much lower resolution. And here is North and South Korea. If you recognize North on the left, that general outline, and that is a satellite image of North and South Korea for I believe 2014 to 2015 every month, animated. So how do we translate that image into usable data? We want to see if there is some signal in that. Here, I just took the radiance level, which is what you saw in the images, and calculated the average radiance for East Asian countries. And so you'll see here in each line the different nations plotted. So do we have an order of ranking that is intuitive? Does it not go against what we think it is? And you see here at the bottom, that orange line is the DPRK, is North Korea. It is well below every nation. The top line is actually Republic of China or Taiwan, and that's because it's a small island nation that's highly developed. There's very little part of that land that is world. The next is, let me see, South Korea, which for people who have paid attention recently, has gone through sort of a renaissance of development. Right, so a lot of that country has sparked up. And you can see here that most Asian countries are in the middle, Japan included. Has the right mix of rural to urban land. Now, with that in mind, can we look at the provinces within DPRK? Because our resolution is at 750 meters, which is well below the area of a province. We can look at the individual states of each province. And here, you'll notice that one line is Pyongyang, compared to every single other province in North Korea, which is every single line on the bottom. And so you can see that this is consistent with our findings before, that malnutrition, MMR, stunting, wasting, all that other things are consistent with the actual development in that nation, in that province, the light of that. How it literally helps brighten the shines. So you'll notice, again, I want to call your attention to the scale of this. This is done in tenths of a radius. This is how small Pyongyang shines, how dim it is. So if we put North Korea against provinces in South Korea and see the difference, we see here how clearly different it is. And the top line is Seoul, South Korea. It's very difficult to place out, but you notice somewhere here in the bottom, there's a small line that's above others. That is Pyongyang. And then everything below that is North Korea. So literally, every province in South Korea shines brighter than anything in North Korea. And the scale here is an actual radiance, so just actual units. And you'll notice it's in the 50s. Still shines so brightly, it's in 50s. And so, just a little bit, that this is done based on VIIRS, which is the satellite, the newest satellite image, and it's only available for a couple months, from 2014 January to, I believe the last point is March of 2016. it's a continuously new data set. So as time goes on, it will be more robust.
Would you mind stopping here?
Sure.
Stop.
I just want one last one.
You have one more. Yeah. The reason I think it saying that we have running out of time. Do you have something really?
Yeah. The last one is just a proof of this whole thing.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
So here, I use the older satellite imagery data, DMSP, if you recall, and it has a much longer time series. So it's existed from 2008 up till 2012. And so I took, for every country listed on the Millennium Development Goals, for every series on the Millennium Development Goal, I took the correlation against the radiance against every series for every country. And here's the list. And you can highlight it, the correlation between series and DMSP, the satellite radiance, and how heavily correlated they are. So you can take the absolute correlation, sort it, and you can see that some of them are highlighted, which is, it requires more research, obviously, because it's correlation is not causation. But seats held in national parliament somehow is heavily correlated with how bright a country is. Children 1 year old immunized is heavily positively correlated with lights, how bright the country is, and so on and so on. We can look at the regular correlation, sort them that way, and see what are positively and negatively correlated. And here we have, again, the negative correlation, I believe is HIV prevalence, primary completion rate, and so on.